Good evening, everyone. We warmly welcome all of you to the fourth webinar of the Together for the Planet Youth, Faith and the Climate Crisis series, organized by the International Youth Alliance for Peace. I'm Minoka Kodituaku, Chairperson of the Oversight Committee on Interfaith Circle of IYAP, and I will be your host and the moderator for today's session. As part of this initiative, we are about to go live. To engage with our participants more interactively, let's connect and make this session as engaging and insightful as possible. We are excited to conduct our fourth webinar series session with our next topic, traditional knowledge and Indigenous people's right in the context of climate change. Before we dive into today's discussion, let me take a moment to introduce the broader purpose of this initiative and how we will progress over the coming weeks. This webinar series is part of IYAP's ongoing commitment to empowering young people and faith-based communities to act on climate change. By combining scientific knowledge with ethical and moral insights drawn from various faith traditions, we aim to inspire and equip participants to take meaningful and sustainable actions. The program will cover a range of interconnected topics over several weeks, from environmental justice and policy to the role of traditional knowledge and youth activism. At IYAP, we believe that knowledge is a foundation for change. That is why we are conducting today's session titled Traditional Knowledge and Indigenous People's Right in the Context of Climate Change, which is the fourth session in our webinar series. This session will explore critical topics such as blending indigenous and modern science, the connection between indigenous knowledge and climate change, challenges faced by indigenous communities and the role of indigenous knowledge in modern climate solutions. By addressing these key issues, we aim to deepen our understanding of the challenges we face and we highlight the urgency of the climate crisis. Together, we can strengthen our collective efforts to build a more just and equitable future. A quick note for participants: those who attend 6 out of the 7 webinars in this series will be awarded a certificate recognizing their dedication to the program. So far, we have covered topics such as the science of climate change, climate justice, and faith-driven environmental advocacy. Over the next few weeks, we will cover themes such as faith and ethics of climate policy, circular economy and sustainable business models, youth and climate activism. But for today, we are focusing on traditional knowledge and indigenous people's rights. Today, we are honored to introduce Dr. T. Suwanthini, who brings a wealth of knowledge and passion to our session. Dr. Suwanthini is a renowned agricultural biologist and research scientist who work with the farming community to assess their challenges. She actively advocates for sustainable production and integrating modern and traditional knowledge to solve issues. With over a decade of research experience, Dr. Suwanthini explores how indigenous knowledge systems can inform sustainable agriculture in the face of climate challenges. Her passion for preserving cultural heritage while promoting environmental resilience make her a leading researcher in the region, voicing for sustainable production and preserving their heritage. Her deep dedication to these causes make her the ideal speaker to continue our webinar series. We look forward to her valuable insights and expertise today. Just a quick note for everyone, one of our colleagues will be posting updates in the chat regarding the next item on the agenda, so keep an eye on that. Please take a note that the chat will be remain closed during the presentation session, but it will be open for participants to ask their questions and to get answers after the presentation is concluded. So after the presentation, we will move into an open discussion where you will have the opportunity to share your thoughts and ask questions from our panelists. It is now my pleasure to hand over the floor to Dr. Suwanthini, who will be leading us in today's session on traditional knowledge and indigenous people's rights in the context of climate change. Dr. Suwanthini, The floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Miss Inoka, and thank you for your introduction. You people are doing wonderful things which are very useful to our younger generation. So let me share my screen. Right. So my topic is Indigenous knowledge and climate change. So in this topic, I'll be discussing on what is Indigenous knowledge, why we need to study this Indigenous knowledge, and what how we can utilize this Indigenous knowledge to address the climate change. So together we all is going to learn from. Right? Indigenous knowledge is very unique to local communities. So different parts of the world giving different definition for indigenous knowledge, but this is very unique and specific to certain communities live around the world. In Sri Lanka, there are indigenous knowledge, indigenous communities. So it differ from country to country. So we should preserve our indigenous knowledge that are very unique to our country. So indigenous communities, they live with a harmony uh, with the environment, right? So they know the language of nature. So this traditional knowledge in the form of observation, skills, practices passed down to generation, and it solved many problems in the current world. So imagine there are several pickups in indigenous knowledge to solve and address the climate crisis that we are facing now, right? So there are so much of wisdom in the indigenous knowledge, we should learn from them. So there have been several authors, scientists, researchers had been worked with indigenous knowledge. So this person, Dr. Kasyapa Japa, he enormously worked in indigenous knowledge in our times, but he is no more now. But based on his statements, we have to go back to the origin and we have to recommend that knowledge. We have to learn from the ancestors and we should recommend that ancestral wisdom. And we can utilize this indigenous knowledge to preserve and protect our resources. So definitely we have to do that. And we'll see why we need to harvest this indigenous knowledge, right? So as I said earlier, this is a valuable natural resource. So this is very unique to our country. As you know, we have a rich cultural diversity, Tamils, Sinhala people, Muslims, so and others. So we are experiencing rich cultural array of people, but we are not utilizing the wisdom of those people. Say, for example, there are meanings behind every cultural activities, practices, rituals. So we have to explore more about that, right? And as you know, the information passed from one generation to generation, there will be a missing information as well. So we have to get those information also. That information might be useful to address many problems in the world. And I want to show you some pictures. These are very famous pictures in the history. The first picture on your left side is Alirani Harbor. So this harbor built for pearl fishing industry. So our ancestors have more wisdom about sea and fishing, right? So they know how to enter inside the sea without any boats or instruments, and they get the fish as well as the pearls. So this is very famous, built in our ancient time. And also on your right side, this is Tekkamanikat. This is in Mannar district. This is used to divert one famous river in Mannar. So this is also drastically devastating and technically sound built, right? So imagine our ancestors have the knowledge uh, to build these things to preserve our resources, as well as to without disturbing our biodiversity inside the sea, as well as without uh, uh, giving disturbance to our ecosystem. So throughout the history, we were rich in culture and wisdom. We should explore more about that. So let's move on to the sustainability and resource management. So in this resource management, I'm going to talk first about water management. So you might have heard about tank village system. So this is one of the famous water management system practice in Sri Lanka, in dry zone mainly. This is now globally acknowledged water management system. So what is the specific of this water management system is, it connects the networks of tanks and streams. So based on the topography, they connect rivers and smaller tanks. Imagine in Jaffna, there were 13,000 ponds at the time, but now there are 100 ponds, so far I came to know. So we missed that rest of the ponds. So we should renovate those without wasting our ancestral knowledge, right? So this network of tanks help to prevent the runoff, right? So we can harvest the water wasted by this runoff and spills. So because of this water storage, there will be no flood and no drought. So and also, so cyclone forces also diluted. Why is that? Uh, so when we give water to the ecosystem, you can grow many trees, right? Mangroves also. So that prevents cyclone forces, and we could able to escape from these natural disasters. And also there's opportunity for rich in biodiversity. Continuously we can we can do the fishing, and we can grow the plants, and people in our ancient time grow many diverse crops, so that help to maintain soil health as well. So this is actually a typical diagram for that water conservation practices. So on your right side, so this is again a small description about tank water systems. So because of that, they could able to get the drinking water from this, because they prepared the bunds based on that to prevent the sedimentation. So this water is very safe for the drinking purpose. So our ancestors, what they have done is, they given the priority for each and every component in the ecosystem. Say, for example, as you can see here, they are giving importance to the household. They have given importance to the paddy field, and they have given importance to the fishing community. So because of that, in that time, we were rich in biodiversity. And this is on your left side. This is one of the traditional system of rainwater harvesting practiced at home level. So this system now implemented by many organizations at school level. So now people are started to explore this indigenous knowledge to preserve the water because of this dry climate area. So when we look at traditional farming, so this traditional farming promote biodiversity, and it conserve water, it maintains soil health. Why is that? Our ancestor did not disturb the soil, and while we get the nutrition from the soil, simultaneously they fortify the soil. So this, the first picture on your left side, this is the plowing mechanism, right? They are utilizing buffaloes to plow the land. So simultaneously, buffaloes' dung and urine fertilize the land. And also the second picture, that is the storage method of rice grain. So individually, they prepared this one and they used it for the next seasonal planting. So this kind of traditional method of farming help with sustain help to attain self-sufficiency, and also um, it did not disturb our environment. So there are several traditional farming practices you could able to see in Colombo National Museum. Recently I came to know this YouTube, based on this YouTube video. You also if you also get some chance to look over, please do. So let's move on to the selection of rice and climate change, right? So you might have wondered what is the relationship between selection of rice and climate change, right? So now we are growing new improved varieties because we are more focusing on yield, the amount of yield, right? So, but in ancient time, we focus on quality of rice. We have utilized traditional rice varieties that rich in proteins and other nutritional composition. And the traditional rice varieties have tall and strong stem. Because of that, it could able to withstand flood, wind, and drought. Right. So the first picture shows the Kaluhenati is one of the traditional varieties, still has been utilized for lactating mothers. Right. So I don't know, our generation will be may focus on these traditional varieties, but we have to do that because earlier we identified 2,000 traditional rice varieties, but in 20th century, only 567 traditional rice varieties um, stored and cultivated widely, right? So we lost our traditional rice varieties. We have to go back to the origin and search, and we have to save that germplasm in Plant Genetic Resource Center. So why we need to cultivate these traditional rice varieties? Only one, for the health purpose. Other reason is it requires less inputs. Say, for example, we don't need to give much chemical fertilizer as we are doing now, right? And also because of that, input cost is very low, right? When compared to new improved variety, when we grow traditional varieties, the input cost is very low. So the profit margin is very high in traditional varieties. And also we are losing our germplasm. So that means we have to save that for future generation, because sometimes we may need to develop new varieties. So we have to get some important traits from traditional varieties. So for that reason, at least we need to save these traditional rice varieties. And let's move on to the carbon sequestration and ecosystem management. You know, the forest is act as carbon sink, and it helped to reduce the release of carbon dioxide, which create global warming. But we are now damaging the forest for the simple purpose, firewood production. So we have to think about that. We have to create awareness among the people. Uh, what is the importance of forest and how we need to preserve them, right? So earlier, our people have done several techniques to manage the forest. Say, for example, they have done control burn or selective logging that help to maintain the health of this forest, right? Health of this ecosystem. So it prevent the risk of wildfires, right? So now this concept has been utilized in creating agroforestry as well as edible forest. So in agroforestry, we are growing crops in several layers, and in edible forest, we are man-made. We are creating the forest. Inside the forest, those plants, you can get fruits, um, and grains and everything. So inside the forest, all parts will be edible. So that is the edible forest. So now we are started to create man-made forest. So that also will help to address the climate change. So definitely when we talk about forest management and everything, we should not miss this Vedas community. So there are several studies about Vedas community. These are now, as far as I heard about this indigenous community, right? So this community initially recognized as hunters, right? That is the sole occupation of Vedas community, but they are not like hunters all the time. They are also agriculturists, right? So they have several techniques to predict the weather, and they have cultivated several array of crops. Say, for example, coconut, corn, finger millets. So, but we did not tap those knowledge from Vedas communities. Apart from that, they are now used as exhibit for ecotourism. So, but they also encourage that because they lost their habitat. They are losing that. Because of several reasons. So I have listed these reasons. So different water streams and rivers which were diverted for paddy cultivation. So because of that, they are not getting the natural flow of water to maintain their cultivation. They are hunting forest reserve as wildlife conservation. So because of that, they need permission to enter inside the forest, and they move to colonies or village allocated by the government. So uh, because of that, they started to move to the village, and they move from the forest. So even though I don't know what is the good side or bad side, I don't want to discuss about that. But the main thing is they have several techniques, their wisdom, their knowledge on agriculture could not be explored more by our society. We have to do that rather than showcasing them in front of people. Right. So let's move to disaster resilience and climate adaptation. So there are several early warning systems for the natural disasters like floods, droughts, and storms. So this observation based on the natural indicators, for example, animal behavior, wind pattern, and changes in our own plant. So these are some example I read about that, and I got to know from our grandparents. So there are certain weather prediction techniques. Say, for example, if eagles and gray hornbills are flying above their normal height in the sky, that means the rain is expected soon. So if the seagulls also are flying close to the ground, it indicates the heavy rainfall. So my grandma always says when ants started to coming out from their nest as colony, that indicates the rain is going to come in 1 or 2 days. So they sense the environment. So our ancestors also observe this indicators, and they accurately predict the weather. But in our days, even Google did not do correctly, right? So there are more local observation used for uh, predict the weather. So here there are several statements said by farmers from different regions. So if there are more than two young crows in the nest, if owl make noise at night, if weavers build nest in neem trees, that means the rain will come very soon, right? This is a statement given by the Gurunahala farmers. And also Ratnapura and Anuradhapura farmers also said the same. And meanwhile, Batticaloa district farmers also forecasting environmental changes because of based on the birds' movement. If the birds moved in one direction as the group, that means the rain is going to come very soon. And some farmers, they used observation based on the indigenous trees, like palu tree. In Tamil, it called as Palemaram, right? This tree is very indigenous to Sri Lanka. So we can't get this knowledge from anywhere else, right? So we have to preserve these trees as well. So these palu trees covered with fruit indicate heavy rainfall. So in 2017, palu tree ripe in December, but usually blossoming of palu tree in May. So in 2017, it has accurately predict the rain because of this ripening of palu tree. So imagine how accurately this indigenous knowledge will help to predict the rain, right? And also this is about the mango tree. So if there is more than an average number of fruits in mango trees, that indicates there will be a good rainfall. So we could be able to harvest both Maha and Jala season. So our ancestors predict our disasters and rain based on the cloud color and cloud cover. These are some of the statements I have received from the farmers. Dark clustered clouds in August. See, they have predicted in certain month as well, right? So dark clustered clouds in August, that indicate heavy rainfall that occurs shortly. And dark clouds around the moon, that and appearance of the rainbow, that also indicate indicator of future rain. This is said by Batticaloa district farmers. So the same as that, when the east sky is dominated by the red color, that predict heavy rain, and this is a good start for Maha season. So these are some indigenous knowledge we learned from the farmers as well. But some of the farmers told me that we missed to observe that indicator plants and indicator birds, animals, and everything. So even though we have knowledge based on these natural indicators, we could able to locate those. Um, they couldn't able to find the reason for that. That also one of the situation in our country, right? So let's move on. What is the connection between indigenous knowledge and climate change? So say, for example, we know the wisdom of how to conserve the water, how to store the water for future use. So it helps to adapt to the climate. And also we can focus on biodiversity and the conservation. So indigenous people often care about the nature. They know the language of the nature. So they often protect the ecosystem. That often give a chance to save from climate change. Say, for example, we have to manage the forest, we have to do the replanting, we have to building. We have to build our buildings in away from the natural ecosystem, like away from the grasslands, wetlands. So we have to preserve those natural ecosystem. And also we have a knowledge to predict and prepare for natural disasters. So if we tap the knowledge correctly, we can prevent the disasters. And let's look at what are the challenges faced by indigenous communities. So as we knew about Vedas community, how they affected by the climate change. So their voices are underrepresented in national and global policy discussion. So we have to get their knowledge and get their representation in policy and discussion. So So once we started to appreciate the indigenous people, so that means it is a good sign. We can tap the indigenous knowledge to blend with modern science. And there are lots of traditional knowledge. So there are several reasons behind that: modernization, deterioration of lands, and war. So there are many indigenous knowledge had been lost. So when a knowledgeable person dies, the whole library disappears. This is one of the famous English proverb. So same applicable to traditional knowledge. So therefore we should find those people. So investors also should come forward and invest more money on these researchers, and we should learn the techniques. Say, for example, even though we can uh, work from the ants, how they sense the climate change, and how the hornbills sense the climate changing pattern. So we can utilize those techniques, and we can blend with modern science to solve climate crisis. So what is our role in indigenous knowledge in modern climatic solution? We can uh, talk about more in questioning session. And when we identify indigenous knowledge, so we came far. We came far. So we can't go back to 2000 or 5000 years before, because that is very difficult. So this is something like government cut fertilizer subsidy after they started to grow improved rice, because improved rice require more fertilizer. So that system would not work, right? So we have to learn good practices from indigenous knowledge, indigenous people, and we have to blend with modern science. And we have to talk about the importance of indigenous knowledge, and we need to create awareness among people. We should appreciate the indigenous knowledge to create more holistic developmental plans. Thank you so much for the opportunity. That's all about my topic. Right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suanthini, for your valuable insights on traditional knowledge and indigenous people's rights in the context of climate change. Actually, when you are presenting, I was just wondering, like, we have been missing so many things, and there are so many things that it's time to concentrate on those things, and we can actually get a lot more benefits and good things for our nature if we concentrate on those indigenous peoples, the their traditions and the way they work and everything. So let's moving on. We have prepared a set of questions based on your presentation, so that we can get more insights from you. So first of all, I would like to know how we can better integrate indigenous knowledge and modern science to enhance sustainability and resource management practices, especially in the face of climate change.
So, so currently we don't know much idea about climate change, because no one has the solution for climate change. But our ancestors, they lived in harmony with the environment. They know how to handle this uh, climate change pattern, and how they can adapt with the they know the knowledge how they can adapt with the environment. So for the water conservation system, that is that is highly necessary at the moment because we are facing now a high temperature rise, right? So the minimum temperature now is on average at night even 33 degrees Celsius. That is not observed maybe 5 years before, 23 to 28 degrees Celsius. So I don't know about 20 years. After 20 years, what is the minimum temperature? So we should focus on drought first. So we have to learn the management practices, how to conserve the water, how our ancestors conserve the water. So as I shown a picture about rainwater harvesting, so we have to harvest the rainwater at our home. So it is not very difficult. We are thinking now this is very difficult because we came so far, but it can be done. At my home, I'm actually doing by keeping a small pot to harvest the water. So at every home, we can practice that. At least maybe at village level also, we can create such kind of a pot or such kind of a system. So no need to be similar to the structure, the knowledge and the technique what they have done in the past, we can acquire that knowledge and build the same kind of a structure to harvest the rainwater. Because our kings and ancient people, they more focus on water storage because they believe agriculture is the backbone of the country. So they built many ponds, they created cascade system. So we can utilize those knowledge and we can renovate those ponds. Still, we have time, so we can renovate that pond based on several strategies and investment by the government, and we can preserve our water. Second thing, I recommend farmers to grow traditional varieties. So generally, Department of Agriculture recommends varieties for dry zone or wet zone, something like that. So why don't farmers select rice varieties what is suitable for their village? Right? So they can utilize maybe kind of a participatory actions. So farmers join in hand, neighboring farmers, then they can discuss what is the which varieties when they grow, they could able to get high yield. They can discuss and create a pool of rice and they can grow that traditional varieties. Although they don't need to spend much money on inputs cost, mainly for fertilizer and pesticide application. So third thing, we should give awareness to the local people, farmers, to appreciate the knowledge of indigenous knowledge. So indigenous people, right? So when we do that, when we tap the indigenous knowledge and when we blend with modern science, then we could able to find the solution for many problems related to climate change, and we can preserve our biodiversity as well. Yes.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for your thorough explanation. So next, I would like to know your thoughts on in what ways that we can strengthen the role of carbon sequestration and ecosystem management in addressing the biodiversity crisis while ensuring sustainable development.
Right. So here, so the very famous concept is replanting and reforestation. We can plant the trees. That is one way of minimizing this global warming. So if at least at your home, you please started to plant the trees. Second thing, you can create agroforestry because now we are talking about cash crops and everything. So we should change our pattern of growing. So there are lands, there are uncultivated lands, so we can utilize those land for growing more plants and getting food out of that. And for the biodiversity concept, so so when we plant the trees near to the sea area, which are suitable to the region, so that invites more fishes, right? So there are several indigenous fishes identified where they are unique to Sri Lanka. So once we change the system, and once we change the system, not targeting the money mainly. Of course, we need to target the money as well, but simultaneously, we should consider and conserve our environment as well. And also, I heard in Jaffna and Panne area, there are several replanting mechanism for mangroves. They are replanting the mangroves. So that conserve the ecosystem, and it prevent tsunami as well, right? Because mangroves has that capacity. So we have to maintain that biodiversity. So when you grow mangroves, so prawns are prawns will be enter inside the sea area very high, and the mangroves are the breeding sites for the prawns. So we could able to harvest harvest high amount of prawns, as well as we are preserving biodiversity as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Doctor. And next, I would like to know your perspective on what challenges do Indigenous communities face when it comes to climate change, and how can their unique perspectives contribute to shaping more effective climate solutions?
Right. So I could take Vedas community as example, because they actually affected by the climate change. Of course, we need some water for paddy cultivation, because that is our major production crop. But because of that, they diverted the rivers, the major rivers. Because of that, they lost the natural flow of water inside the forest. So what we can do is we have to build the capacity of that indigenous community people to talk more, and take their voices at national level discussion. And we have to appreciate that people, and we should get the wisdom from that community. And for addressing climate change, of course, they have been practice so many different techniques. Say, for example, predict the weather, and selection of crops based on the season. So they know in which season uh, which crop is more suitable, right? So those knowledge, if we could able to get it from them, then we can preserve our ecosystem, as well as we can uh, way forward in our production side as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor, for your perspective. And, these insights are very, very valuable to us. As you have mentioned in your presentation also, our ancestors they used to understand the nature very well. So in other terms, like, they protect the nature, and nature protects themselves. So it was always a win-win situation. So thank you very much, Dr. Swanthini, for your incredible insights today. I mean, I think everyone who are participating today and who will be watching it after the live session over in our YouTube channel, they will all agree, and they will also be very thankful for you for your valuable insights. So on behalf of everyone, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to Dr. Swanthini for sharing her valuable insights and expertise today. Your contribution has made this session not only informative, but also deeply thought-provoking. We truly appreciate your time for helping us gain a better understanding of these critical issues. Then again, a heartfelt thank goes to our audience for their active participation today, and hope to have your engaging questions for the Q&A session as well. Lastly, a special thank goes to our coordinators for their hard work in organizing this successful event. Your efforts behind the scene made this session possible and impactful. And also, biggest thanks to the participants who will be watching this program for this webinar after our through our YouTube channel. So with that, we will be closing the live session, but the recorded Q&A session will continue afterwards. So thank you for joining us today. And